Hello, my name's Chris Hawken. I've been in the car industry, worked in the car industry for over 30 years. I'm now a consultant in marketing, helping businesses to make their marketing functions a much better driver of business performance, not just in automotive. The Radiocentre have asked me today to just give you an insight, very brief insight into what's happening in the car industry, how it's been affected by COVID-19, and what the opportunities and challenges are for the industry moving forward. So I think it's fair to say that when we went into shutdown on about the 23rd of March, car sales, not surprisingly, fell off a cliff. New car sales were down 97% in April, 89% in May, on the back of the industry having quite a challenging time because of the speed of the move from internal combustion engines, traditional petrol and diesel engines, to electric vehicles, with all the challenges and customer confusion that that's brought with it, and the lack of choice and all the other things. What is positive is that there's an awful lot of pent-up demand. I'll show you in a moment. And because showrooms are large and spacious, the SMMT's done a great job working with government to make sure that car dealerships were amongst the first things that could reopen when we started to come out of lockdown at the beginning of June. So all car dealerships are now open for business. If we just have a look at May's registration figures, petrol and diesel down obviously the most. If you look at battery electric alone, they're actually up 12% over last year. And with a number of new electric vehicles to launch this year, I think over 21 new electric vehicles being launched this year, then there's going to be a lot of activity, a lot more activity and a lot more choice for consumers. So as I said, plenty of pent-up demand for both new and used vehicles. If we look at used specifically, used car interest is up 25% according to Auto Trader, and so far this year, and back to pre-COVID levels in just 10 days of dealers opening, according to Indicator. Used prices are holding up well. There's very limited supply. There's no wash through of rental cars coming back in yet. So very, very tight supply. New buyers are coming into the market for cheaper cars to avoid having to use public transport. And in fact, in one of Auto Trader's recent surveys, they found 42% of people want to replace an existing model. Almost the same need a car which they haven't needed before, or need an extra car, and nearly 17% are buying a car just to avoid public transport. So plenty of new people coming into the market. And that last one, 17% wanting a car to avoid public transport, has seen a big growth in the value of cars at the lower end of the used car market. On new cars, which is what really matters, very strong growth in sales leads, at least for some brands. All the volume premium brands are well up on leads, and this is an example of one volume premium brand. If I go through the numbers that they've just experienced, and these are from the 15th of June, named leads, so that's a lead that comes through to the manufacturer with a name, address or email address or phone number. Last week, nearly 5,500, up 165% on the same week last year. Over the last 4 weeks versus the same 4 weeks last year, they're up 127%. And year to date, up over 24%. So very, very substantial interest in new cars. Overall this year, the market's likely to be down about 30%, depending on who you talk to. It could be 20%, it could be 30%. And an awful lot depends on how severe the oncoming recession is. In terms of some of the challenges that the industry is facing, at least, and this is not an exhaustive list, the number one has to be recession and unemployment. The first thing that goes is in any kind of difficult times is buying a new car. Probably second cost only to buying a new house. Very large cost and often put on hold. So that's a big threat and a big challenge going forward. New ways of working. We've all become much more willing to work at home, much more able to work at home. We've got less dependence on trundling off to an office. Traffic movements are already much, much lower, and lower traffic movement is highly likely to continue with less dependence on needing a car. There'll be a move. There's already been an enormous move to buying online. People have got more used to it. And certainly in the short term, people are enjoying buying online to avoid the need to go anywhere near a dealer. That will continue to be a challenge and will be a big move and a big change for the industry moving forward. The speed of change from internal combustion engines to electric vehicles, that will continue. For many, the speed of change has been too quick. It's been too confusing for customers. And electric vehicles are really not for everyone. They have a much higher upfront cost. There's concerns re the charging infrastructure. They're not cheap enough, and for many there's not enough good reason to buy one. And so as a consequence, many people have sat on their hands and just waited. The weak pound and the ongoing pricing pressure that a weak pound puts on vehicle pricing, and there's a lot of uncertainty coming over the next 6 months with how well the government negotiates a Brexit deal and what that does to the future of our trading partnership with the EU. The need to sell more electric vehicles for manufacturers to lower their average CO2 output. That's a very serious issue that's coming in. This year's a trial year. Next year the fines come. So there's going to be big pressure on all of us to move into electric vehicles. Ad budgets have already been cut, but one of the challenges this year is launching at least 21 new electric vehicles and maintaining a good sales mix for all the manufacturers. And the cost of social distancing measures, which one dealer group has conservatively put at £350,000 extra per month across all their dealerships. So a number of challenges, not exhaustive, but they're some of the most challenging that are coming up now. In terms of opportunities, there's plenty, and for the 9 million people who've been furloughed, and saving an awful lot of money. Over £15 billion has been paid off in debt. Many people have not been paying to commute to work. They've not been paying for lunches and coffees. They've not been spending any money on shopping. They've not had a holiday and are perhaps unlikely to have a holiday this year. So the next best thing they can do is go and buy a new car. So plenty of opportunity there. There'll be a big shift to online sales and all the benefits and advantages that can bring. The new Volkswagen ID.3 is being sold across Europe, not in the UK, but being sold across Europe on an agency model where the price is the same online as it is in a dealership. There's no haggling. It's one set price. You order the car, you go to the dealership for a test drive. The dealer delivers the car. The dealer's paid a handling fee, much as they're paid a lot now on fleet deals, and that will be a big change that comes in across a number of manufacturers over the next few years and is already starting in some European countries with the new ID.3. There's a large percentage of finance PCP, people with cars on finance PCPs where they have to do something. They can just pay it off, but they're just as likely with low interest rates to come in and negotiate another deal and buy a new car and roll on into another PCP deal. Plenty of opportunity there. The ultra-low emission zone compliance, that's already come in London. Many people find that their car now can't drive across the zone unless they pay £12.50. They'll be looking for a new vehicle to avoid that charge, and ultra-low emission zones are rolling out in other cities across the UK. There's a number of people wanting to avoid public transport and indeed car sharing. So a number of people coming into the market to look for a car who wouldn't normally have wanted a car. There's the affordability of finance offers, some incredibly cheap very cheap cars with a low down payment and a low monthly cost. Why wouldn't you buy a new car? And obviously a government stimulus that's a big opportunity for the industry, should it be needed, should the recovery be difficult, then there might well be an opportunity for a government stimulus to come in. So what does the future look like? Well, in the short term, there'll be a lot more of us working from home. Vehicle movements are creeping up, but they're still very much lower than they were, and that will have a long-term impact on car usage. There'll be a move away in the short term from people wanting to use public transport, and we're seeing people move now into wanting to get a car to avoid using public transport. We'll see more bike lanes and more shared use of the roads, and we'll probably have less car sharing as people continue to try to avoid each other. And of course, there's huge economic uncertainty hanging over us. There'll be a continuing shift towards clean air zones with charging for non-compliant vehicles. There'll be a shift towards more electric vehicles, towards more hybrid vehicles, and even to some hydrogen drive systems. And that has to happen so that manufacturers can meet their new lower emissions targets. And connected cars will become much more ubiquitous in the future, with greater levels of autonomy, building eventually, but probably not in my lifetime, to fully autonomous cars with no steering wheel. Very exciting utopian future, which I very much hope I'll see the beginning of. So in terms of my final slide, it's really to say take advantage now and capitalise on today's optimism. There's clearly plenty of pent-up demand that needs satisfying. There's many furloughed people, many retired people who have money to spend. No one quite knows how grim the future is going to be, so capitalise on today's optimism. And as more and more people get back into their cars, obviously make sure that you include radio advertising in your schedules if it's right for reaching your target groups. So if you've got any questions, please leave them where you're instructed to, and I look forward to answering them. But thank you very much, and I hope the rest of the year is very good to you. Stay safe.